Okay, I think we're going to make a start. So, my name's Vic Wood. I'm a senior volunteer with Sea Shepherd. If you've been to the Sea Shepherd stand, you've probably noticed I'm not on there today. I'm representing my own business today, which is Greener Beauty. I've been a senior volunteer with Sea Shepherd about 5 years. I've done a number of campaigns. If you've heard about what they do in Taiji in Japan, I was over there a few years ago for Bloody January, and I can tell you it's named that for a reason. I've also partaken in the Greenstock campaign in the Faroes, so we're not going to be talking about either of those campaigns today, but if you would like to know what goes on over there, I'm more than happy to talk to you about that. And also I've taken part in the highly successful UK campaign, which was a SEAL defence campaign, which happened to be the most successful Sea Shepherd campaign ever, not just in the UK, ever. Within 7 days of us being on the ground in Scotland, where they shoot seals to protect the salmon, the wild salmon that swims in the sea, not even in cages or anything like that, wild salmon, and the salmon fishermen shoot seals. They put their guns down within 7 days of us being there. And now, the Scottish Government have actually decided that they're not allowed to salmon fish at the moment, so it's completely successful. Not only the seals are safe, but the salmon are safe up there as well. So just out of interest, who here has heard of Sea Shepherd? Okay, who's a supporter of Sea Shepherd? Okay, I've got a few people to convince. Sea Shepherd's been around since 1977, so last year was our 40th anniversary. We are a marine conservation charity. We are not a vegan charity, we're a marine conservation charity. Having said that, we do run our boats vegan. So we've been around for 40 years. We've got a very obvious logo, it's very distinctive, with the skull and crossbones. I'm sure many people have seen that around. I know working as stands, people often ask why we have that logo, so I'm just going to talk you through what that actually means, because obviously it looks very aggressive, and it's actually not. It's got quite a few levels of hidden meaning. So the first level is the skull, and this represents the destruction that humanity is causing on the oceans, and there is no way around it. We're causing destruction. And then we have, when we catch up, a pilot whale and a bottlenose dolphin. And they're in a yin and yang position, and that is representing the balance of the oceans. The oceans are a very delicate ecosystem, very much like anything on land, really. If you remove one species, obviously the whole balance gets distorted. And we've got Neptune's trident. I'm sure everyone here has heard of Neptune. So Neptune, the protector of the sea, because that's what we are, we're the protector of the oceans. And finally, we've got the shepherd's staff, hopefully. And that's because we're protecting the oceans, we're watching over, we're doing what we can to protect it. So around the world, I'm so sorry, this laptop's really slow. So this logo, rather than being the logo of a pirate, which obviously it does look like, and I think it's pretty cool to be honest, obviously has a much deeper hidden meaning. It's actually more about the protection of the oceans and the destruction that we are causing as a species. It's crazy to think that the Mariana Trench, for example, is so deep we know more about space than what lives down there. Yet they're still finding plastic down there. You know, that our reaches are reaching points of the planet that we have no idea about. I'm just going to play a short video now, hopefully. Sorry about this, it doesn't seem to be launched in the video, so I'm just going to move on. But Sea Shepherd has a number of campaigns all around the world, so we protect lots of different species. Obviously we're very well known for protecting whales down in Antarctica. We're very well known for protecting the dolphins in Taiji and the Faroes. We're lesser known for protecting coral reefs in Hawaii. We've got a team of divers over there, and they monitor the reefs and the health of the reefs, and they're out there all the time. We've still got a crew on water, in the Gulf of Mexico, and they're still studying the after effects of the Gulf spill, of all the spill that happened, the BP spill. And they're still out there, and they'll be there for quite some time. So we have a wide variety of campaigns protecting all different species. You can see just some of the logos we've got there. The Galapagos is a great campaign. That's another campaign we're not very well known for. Most of the time we're going up against tradition, and we're not necessarily making lots of friends in the places where we go. But the Galapagos is somewhere that the government have actually asked us to be. So we're there on behalf of the government, working with the government. It's the only place in the world that Sea Shepherd has a canine unit. We're basically looking for any fishermen that are legally taking shark fins out of the Galapagos. We're going to talk a little bit more about shark finning. But just to give you an idea, sharks are probably, all species in the ocean are vitally important. But sharks being the apex predator, if you remove them from the ocean, it will totally offset the whole balance of everything else that lives there. It is known as a fact that we kill 100 million sharks a year. 100 million sharks. And I've read studies where people think actually the figure is much higher than that, and it's probably more like 300 million. If that was happening to humans, there would be uproar. And the most ironic thing for me is someone who loves sharks. Most of them are finned, so they take the fins off for shark fin soup, and then they throw the rest of the shark in the ocean. So you have a shark that's still alive, hasn't got its fins, and a shark breathes by moving. So as it moves through the water, it moves the oxygen in the water into its gills. So without its fins, it's lying there on the bottom of the ocean, and obviously it can't breathe. It just slowly suffocates. And that's at least 100 million sharks a year that's happening to. It's disgusting. I don't know what we think we're doing. So we're there in the Galapagos, and not only are we've got teams who are trying to catch anyone who's taking shark fins out of the country, because it is illegal in the Galapagos. We're also going into schools. We're talking into the future fishermen of the Galapagos. We're telling them why sharks are important. We're trying to educate to stop this cycle from keep happening. So while we always do our best to protect, we also try to do our best to educate as well. Bycatch is another huge problem. Does anyone know much about bycatch?
It's what they throw back, what they don't want when they're fishing.
Exactly.
Straight back in the ocean.
Yeah, and it could be anything. A kilo of prawns, and so many people eat prawns, it's one of the worst things you can eat. A kilo of prawns has on average 20 kilos of bycatch, just for 1 kilo. If you think about the volumes that you've got, that 1 kilo of prawns, 20 kilos of bycatch, and that could be anything. It could be a turtle, it could be a dolphin, it could be a whale, it could be a shark, it could be a tuna. It doesn't matter, they just throw it all back. And then the other things we've got is the long lines and the gill nets. I'm not going to read this. I'm sure everyone's aware what long lines are. Yeah, we had a campaign. Steve, was it? Steve's running the stand today. Was it 2 years ago? Where we caught the 72 kilometres of long line?
No, it's
Maybe, okay. 2 or 3. Let's go with 2 or 3. We were chasing some illegal fishermen, and one of our boats captured the long line nets that they had dropped from their ship. 72 kilometres. So anything trying to swim across that line for 72 kilometres would be caught. Absolutely anything and everything. I mean, it's mind-blowing, isn't it? These are just some pictures from the bycatch we have found on different campaigns. Obviously, you can imagine we've got a lot of endangered species, unfortunately. It's just the day and age we're living in. And unfortunately, these get caught in nets as well. This very cute guy. He lives in the Sea of Mexico. And there's less than 50 of them left. That's it. So we're just going to talk, I'm going to talk very quickly about this campaign here. So this is running just off the west coast of Central Africa. And we were first out there in 2016. And there's a lot of illegal fishing that happens in this water. So again, this is a campaign that we're working with the local government to try and stop this illegal fishing. They have a lot of bycatch problems and shark finning. I mean, shark finning is mainly for the Chinese, but it happens everywhere. Anywhere in the world, and there could be shark finning happening. I do have a short video, so I'm just going to play this. Hopefully it'll work. Quite terrifying, isn't it? That is one ship. One ship. And just imagine this planet that we live on, that we call Earth, is 70% water. So how many times is this happening? I mean, I know we all talk about 56 billion land animals, but does anyone know how many fish they think are killed each year? 300 billion. And that doesn't count for bycatch. I mean, the numbers are incredible. How can you sustain that? 300 billion fish a year. So despite this, it's actually been a very successful campaign down there. They've had a lot of wins. They've certainly stopped a lot of the illegal fishing that's been happening down there. I mean, that video was atrocious, and I'm sorry about that. But that is the reality. That is the world that we live in. Got another short video here.
Sometimes you arrive at a net and you retrieve it and there's just dead animal after dead animal, super decomposed, and you think, for how long have they been sitting here, and everything's just smelling bad, and I think it's the worst thing I've ever smelled in my life, and you just think, how can this happen? Like, it wouldn't be there if there wasn't this net. It's easy to remove a net where there's nothing in it, but it's very hard when you're constantly confronted with all the death that's trapped in there.
The Gulf of California has such an incredible biodiversity that holds 1/3 of the marine mammals of the world. Whenever I'm on the bridge and I look outside and I see the animals that are free, alive, from the smallest of the sea lions to the big whales, it's a very strong and deep reminder of why we are here, to defend them, to stand on their side.
Two very similar campaigns in two totally different oceans. They're both very successful campaigns on a very positive note. I know that's quite depressing on a Saturday afternoon. You're at a vegan fair and you're eating lots of cake, but they are very positive campaigns, and we've had a great response from both of them, and we've managed to save an awful lot of marine life. So that is great, and that's the thing about Sea Shepherd. We are, without doubt, making a difference. We are on the ground, and we're doing whatever on the water, doing whatever we can to save these creatures. I don't know if anyone recognised this lovely boat in the middle. So this is the newest of our fleet, certainly of the large ships. This is Ocean Warrior. And this campaign is partly thanks to us in the UK. It was from funds that were donated to us from the Dutch Lottery and the UK People's Lottery. Postcode Lottery, that's the one. Yes, thanks, Steve. So yeah, 13 million. And it's an amazing ship. I was very lucky to go on it in Amsterdam when it was docked before it went down to its first trip in Antarctica. It needs minimal crew, which means it can go really bloody fast. And it's amazing. It's got this water cannon at the back, and I won't tell you how many horsepower that water cannon is. I wouldn't stand within at least a 3-mile radius of it if I was anyone else. So we're just going to have a quick chat about Operation Apex Harmony. Now, Apex Harmony is actually quite an old campaign. It started in Australia, where along some of the coast they laid out nets just to stop the sharks from getting into the coastal waters. Obviously those nets didn't care whether you're a shark or a turtle or a dolphin, they just stopped everything. Unfortunately, it's not a campaign that we could stop and release animals from the nets. We had to document. So the Australian government were only meant to be catching sharks of a certain size, they weren't meant to be pregnant, there weren't meant to be any turtles, there weren't meant to be any rays, there weren't meant to be dolphins. Obviously we documented all of that, and there was all of that. The campaign's now moved to an island just south of Indonesia, and this is where they do an awful lot of shark finning. The campaign is led by a chap called Gary Stokes, who runs Sea Shepherd Asia. He's a fellow Brit. And he runs it over there. He's taken some very well, actually he's had photographs used in documentaries on the BBC of shark finning. He's like an expert on this topic. So we're out there sort of documenting numbers. We're trying to see if we can catch anyone out there doing things they shouldn't be doing. I think I actually mentioned this earlier about and what's everyone's thoughts on sharks in the room? Obviously I said they're very important earlier.
Every right to be there.
Yeah, every right to be there, that's very true. Is anyone scared of them?
No. I've been diving with sharks for 10, 15 years and I've never seen any shark attacks or anything like that.
No.
They're beautiful animals.
Yeah, I'm a diver too, and I've seen loads of sharks, and they're so beautiful and so graceful the way they just sort of glide through the water, and they're so inquisitive, but actually they don't want to come that close to you. They're an amazing species, and unfortunately one that might not be around for much longer. And what will happen, has anyone got any ideas what will happen if we take sharks out of the ocean? I can tell you what will happen. Sharks' main diet is things like jellyfish, squid. So as you can imagine, without a predator eating the jellyfish and the squid, they're going to overpopulate. And all of a sudden, we're going to have an ocean full of jellyfish and squid. I love jellyfish and squid, but there's got to be a limit. Unfortunately, if we have loads of them in the ocean, they'll obviously eat everything they need to eat underneath them, and they'll kill the food chain below them. And obviously, they will then die. So all of a sudden, you've got an ocean that's devoid of fish. There'll be nothing left, just by removing sharks. And there we go, the 100 million a year that are killed. I think we've got a video here from the campaign.
the 2017 Apex Harmony campaign in Timor-Leste has so far been a huge success. Our mission was to come to the waters of Timor-Leste to document the activities of a rogue fishing fleet that are known to be targeting sharks. The Ocean Warrior left Fremantle 1 month ago on a secret mission, and today stands guard off the coast of Omasé, where a fleet of 15 vessels are being detained. This vessel here is owned by Pingtan and Hong Fisheries. The two companies have sort of merged into one. Pingtan is listed on the NASDAQ. It's the US stock listing company, and it's fishing for shark here, where it should be fishing for tuna. In February, this fleet was filmed carrying out transshipment right here in Omasé. The footage shows masses of sharks, including CITES listed hammerheads, being transferred to a mothership, the Phu Yen Yu Leng 999. In August, the Phu Yen Yu Leng 999 was apprehended and detained in the Galapagos, and now its crew are serving jail time. Last week, in partnership with the Timorese police, Sea Shepherd crew boarded these vessels during a dawn raid to document what was on board.
Everything went really well. We deboarded the vessels we wanted with a lot of success, and we managed with the Ocean Warrior to stop the others to flee and to escape justice.
It was so important to do this. It was really good. It was a good experience to actually help Timorese police to board the ships.
The good thing for them here is they have been doing research, they have been at the vessel, we have been seeing our own eyes with the SAR, and even we know how many SAR each boat. Let's say it just come yesterday without person one. That is a nice boat there, but we do not know what is inside the boat. But because they are held, so we know what is inside the boat.
We found thousands of sharks in their holds and were able to document the destruction that this fleet has brought upon the waters of Timor-Leste.
When I landed on one of the ships and met the people and started to go down into the freezer hold, my body went into this sort of almost state of shock. On seeing the rows and rows of dead sharks, I froze and I went numb, and I thought to myself, can I handle this? Can I cope with this situation? And I took a big swallow and thought, yep, I can do this. I need to stand here and document exactly how many sharks, and this is my job right now. So I refocused and started counting, and it just got up into the thousands.
They were taking everything from possibly mature males and females that can breed and ensure future generations of sharks, all the way down to young juvenile sharks that maybe only ever seen their first year of life. And that across-the-board destruction really does affect an ecosystem.
When it came to going down those ladders and into that freezer, it's always, a bit eerie what you're going to walk into. The first shark that breeds in there, not too long that, was this beautiful red shark, about 1.5 to 2 meters long, and just frozen solid.
This resource is not just a fishing resource, it's also food security, it's also livelihood, and it's also a possible future marine ecotourism resource for Timor-Leste. So if they're going to destroy that as a foreign fleet, sure they can leave and go to another country when they're done. The people of Timor-Leste have stuck with this.
It's vitally important that we stop this. That's up to 100 million sharks a year. Caught many for the shark finning industry or as bycatch, and it's just completely and utterly unsustainable.
It's not about survival, it's not about the Timorese guy who's going into his little fishing platform and fish like 3 fish for the day or something like that. It's not about that, it's just like large scale killing industry, and it's scary to see those like perfect creatures, perfect animals
So sharks are really, really vital to the health of our oceans.
It's no longer about putting food on the table, it's just about putting money in the back pocket.
Without stricter international regulations and enforcement, small countries like Timor Leste will be the ones suffering the most.
In the level though, everyone's losing. We are losing. What we have to do really well, but the oceans and the people from this country are losing.
The evidence is there that a lot of fishing fleets aren't getting the catch and aren't obtaining their quota. And that to me is an indication that something's really, really wrong.
So, the Ocean Warrior remains here with the fleet and will not be going anywhere until action has been taken.
There's not a lot I can say after that, is there? I don't know if anyone caught that, but Gary did say, probably about a minute in, that ship they boarded was actually, it's part of a company that's listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So that's a big company. I have no idea how many ships they have, I dread to think. Moving swiftly on to a very cute campaign. Like a lot of ours, it doesn't have obviously has its issues. It has some quite big issues. There'll be another video shortly. There's quite a few videos here. But to be honest, the videos are great because obviously they can show you exactly what's going on. I can tell you it, but it's great to watch it. I hope you agree. So this campaign's was happening off a little island in the Pacific Ocean. I can speak now. Off the Pacific Ocean, just off the east coast of Africa. And this island's very special because turtles come to lay their eggs on the beaches. And I think, I don't know if anyone watched the BBC series last year. We obviously were all very aware of the problem with turtles and the hatchlings, whether the turtles make it safely back out to sea, whether the hatchlings can actually make it out to sea due to light pollution. Sometimes they end up wandering into cities and towns just because of the light and the things that are pulling them in. So we've got a campaign that's running, and it's to protect these turtles. So we look after the mummy turtles when they come in to lay the eggs. We mark where the eggs are, and then when the turtles hatch, we escort the babies back out to sea. We at least monitor them to make sure they make it in the right direction. Obviously if they don't, we make sure they do. It's as simple as that. Sounds like a really sweet campaign. Unfortunately, if anyone's aware of this, turtle meat and turtle eggs are worth a lot of money. So obviously when money becomes involved, quite often you have, I'm trying to think of a polite way to say it. I've been told not to swear for the video camera at the back of the room. We've got poachers, and they're working in the black market, and they will use any means necessary to make sure they get that meat, their eggs, just because it's worth money. They're so cute, aren't they? Little baby turtles, there's nothing like it. I've got another video here, shortly. Let's give you a first-hand experience of what it was like to be on this campaign.
il n'y en a pas beaucoup, là, dans le passage, là, par un peu avant, il y a pas un peu là, on n'est pas un peu loin.
Unfortunately, that's happening all over the world. I don't know if anyone followed, but we were in Costa Rica for a number of years until the government decided that Sea Shepherd volunteers were no longer allowed anywhere near Costa Rica or on the islands or in the water. So unfortunately, we had to stop that campaign. We weren't allowed back in. There was no way of us continuing. They threatened to arrest us as soon as we arrived on the ground, which is great. Just trying to save some turtles here. We're going to move on. So we've covered a number of campaigns as they're happening around the world. Does anyone here know much about the captive industry? Has anyone seen Blackfish? Yeah? Has anyone seen The Cove? Wow, there's a lot of no's. Okay, I'm going to tell you what happens in Taji. The Cove was a documentary that was filmed by a chap called Rick O'Barry, who's associated with a charity called the Dolphin Project. And Rick O'Barry is most famously known for the TV series in the 70s called Flipper. And obviously that was set in it was actually in a lake, and they actually had 4 flipper dolphins, and they were put on rotation, and it's where Rick O'Barry fell in love with dolphins. Unfortunately, it's the time that the rest of the world also fell in love with dolphins, and it's the time when the world started having things like swim with dolphin programs, SeaWorld sprung up in the 70s, all those sorts of marine parks. Do you come in and sit down? Welcome. It's all right. We're just starting to talk about Taji. You guys know about Taji? No. It's going to be a good education for everyone today. So, about the time in the 70s that Flipper was on, a small fishing village in Japan called Taji started to realise that dolphins have a lot of money value. Once again, that M word comes into play. And it was about that time they also realised that where they are on the south coast of Japan, there's lots of pods of dolphins that migrate on a daily basis for 6 months of the year. So what happens is every day in Taji, at about 4:30 a.m, There are 12 boats that go out to sea, and what they're doing is they're looking for pods of dolphins, and the 12 of them span the horizon, and they all go out. Now, it could take 10 minutes, it could take 5 hours. They have to be back in the harbour by 1 p.m. So, I mean, that's quite a length of time from 4:30 a.m. What they will do is when they find a pod, they will get a number of these boats, which are called banger boats, and they'll surround the pod of dolphins to create almost like a crescent shape. And on the side of these boats, they have a banger pole. And what that is a long pole that goes from where the captain sits into the water and then goes out into a funnel shape. And he'll bang on that with a hammer. As a diver, you'll know, noise carries, doesn't it? It travels underwater. And obviously dolphins, they use their sonar, they're very sound aware. So if you imagine you're being surrounded by, say, even half the fleet, 6 boats, 10 boats, 12 boats, and they're all making this noise, it creates this wall of noise. And using this wall of noise, these fleets, they can actually direct the dolphins and drive them wherever they want to go. And what tends to happen, is they drive them into this area which is known as the Cove, hence the name of the Rico Barry film. And in the Cove, it's not very pleasant. There's a part of the Cove called the Killing Cove. I won't give any prizes for guessing what happens there. So what happens is once they're in this cove, divers will get into the water and they will search for the prettiest dolphins. Even as I say, I find it so absurd. They look for the prettiest dolphins, the ones without the markings, the ones that are still young enough to be trained to do tricks that they would never do in the wild. I mean, I'm sure you've seen videos of dolphins painting pictures. It's ridiculous. So once they've picked these ones, these dolphins will then be removed from the pod. They're all netted into this killing cove. And what happens then is they slaughter the rest. I mean, you know, why release them into the wild? I think if you were to speak to a Taji fisherman, he would say they eat the meat. But they haven't eaten the meat for years. You know, if you speak to any doctor in Japan, he will tell you it's not safe to eat dolphin meat, just because of the high. So what happens is once they've killed the rest of the pod, sometimes there are infants in the pod. They're given a quota by the Japanese government of how many to kill each year. And sometimes the juveniles, they might not want them to count towards that quota. So certainly the day I was there for 3 weeks, I had 1 blue cove, which means that there was no killing. So the rest of that 3 weeks, there were killings every single day. Just in that 3 weeks, I probably witnessed thousands of dolphins being killed. I mean, it's barbaric, it's unbelievable, and it's happening every single day for 6 months. There was one pod that I remember very clearly. I think it was about day 2 or 3. I think the first 2 days were a little bit like, whoa. And it was a pod of Rizzo dolphins. And the pod was only about 50 or 60 in size, and they took about 8 of them for captivity, but there were about 10 babies. So what they did is they took the babies out of the pod, they put them into slings, and they attached them to the side of the banger boats. They drove them back out to sea and just dropped them. What would happen if we did that to a child? It wouldn't be able to fend for itself. It's exactly the same with the dolphin. Unfortunately, those dolphins in particular, they washed up about a week and a half later because they couldn't survive. The thought is that in Taji they kill about 5,000 dolphins a year. It's a huge number. It's not the only place in Japan that does it. Unfortunately, the Japanese government are not Sea Shepherd's biggest fans. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. They don't really like us. Eco-terrorists, I think they call us. I can't go back to Japan. That's it. I'm banned for life now because I took some pictures. Rock on. I took some pictures, I got banned from a country for life. And for that reason, unfortunately, we can't be on the ground in Taji anymore. I know it was a very hard decision to make because obviously dolphins are out there being slaughtered. But we can't physically go out there, and there aren't enough people coming forward that haven't been before that can continue the campaign on. But it's not something we're going to let go. it's something we're going to continue fighting. Hence the birth of campaign 404. If you know anything about the internet, 404 means page not found. And that's what we want for dolphinariums. And just to give you an idea, so here it says, in the wild, dolphins can swim up to 130 kilometres per day, moving in family pods. I mean, has anyone ever actually seen an aquarium or a swim with dolphin programme, SeaWorld? I have to be honest, I'm going to put my hands up. I've done a swim with dolphin programme about 10 years ago. It was absolutely revolting. It was before I was vegan, before I joined Sea Shepherd, before I had any idea. I remembered emailing them, the dolphins all night, safe, they kept well, they looked after. Oh yes, we have very high standards. We look after our dolphins very well. And they're all bred in captivity, which now I know is absolute rubbish. But it stank. I just remember the smell. Because obviously they were swimming in this, it was like a little bay. It was in Jamaica, a little bay that was sort of sectioned off from the sea, and they're like, oh, they can go if they want, they just want to stay. They like being fed dead fish. But of course, you know, you can't, they couldn't get out. There was no way they could get out. And that's, for me, that was one of the things, alongside being a diver, is what made me really start thinking about marine conservation, because it's just not right. So if you have been, don't feel guilty about it. All our journeys lead us to where we are today. Rico Barry very famously says that the dolphin's smile is the biggest lie in the nature world, which I think is probably true. Has anyone been to SeaWorld? I haven't been there. I can't claim to that one. Obviously, if you've all watched Blackfish, I'm not really going to go into that, because I think it's quite common knowledge about what happens at SeaWorld. But for those of you who haven't, Carl Park? That's where the orca lives, that tiny little blue dot there. Doesn't really compare to life in the ocean, out in the wild, catching your own fish, playing with some waves. I think it's very interesting. I think that's something that we can all help with. A lot of these campaigns, you know, people go out on the boats and they go and live for 6 months and they fight all these atrocities from happening. But that is something we can all help with every day. If you've got a friend who's going to Florida and they're going to SeaWorld or a swim with dolphin programme and they're getting really excited, tell them. Tell them to watch The Cove, tell them to watch Blackfish, talk to them about the reality of what happens there. You know, a dolphin in captivity will not breed. That's the bottom line. It will not breed because it is not happy. A dolphin in captivity is fed a daily diet of antidepressants and antibiotics because it does not belong in that cage. And that's something we can all do. We can spread the word, we can talk to friends and family. Let's stop it. Let's help make a difference. Let's try and change this. In the UK, we've recently launched a new campaign, and this is quite exciting, especially for you, Mr. Diver. Are there any other divers in the room? For you two, too. Yeah, fab. So, we've recently launched a campaign called the GhostNet campaign. I'm not going to give any prizes for guessing what that is either. What we're basically doing is we're working with a number of companies in the UK, and we have a hotline, ghostnet@seashepherduk.org. And people are reporting when they find GhostNet. We're working with the government as well. They obviously need to be aware of what the nets we find are, how large they are, where they're embedded, if there's any life in them, if they look like they've been there a long time. Obviously, we've got to be careful to not destroy any mini reefs, ecosystems by removing them. But this campaign was only launched a few months back, and it's already been very successful. We've got teams of guys who've been out all over the UK, especially down to Devon and Dorset and Cornwall, where there's some great diving down there. Lots of little ecosystems. We've been out there removing all the nets. and trying to stop things like that from happening. And again, if you find yourself on the beach, just having a nice little afternoon stroll, and you notice some nets, do let us know. We've got teams of people all over the UK, so we can always arrange for dives to happen and for those nets to be pulled up safely. There's quite a few of these. I'm sorry, they're not that nice, are they? Just seen the time. I think I'm running a bit late, aren't I? Yeah. Do I need to wrap this up?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to speed through these. Okay, this is just basically saying in a nutshell, we do lots of beach cleans. We had one weekend recently where we had 40 beach cleans around the UK. So wherever you are, make sure you're following Sea Shepherd UK on Facebook, follow our website, get involved. They're great fun at beach cleans, especially on a Sunday morning. Feeling a bit hazy from Saturday night, get on the beach, pick up a bit of litter. Or if you find a beach that's really dirty and really desperately needs a clean, do email us, do tell us, and we can coordinate volunteers in the area to go and give that a good clean. Because obviously anything on the beach could potentially end up in the ocean. And anything that ends up in the ocean could potentially end up in the mouth of anything that's in the ocean, really. Sorry, my mind's going quite quickly now. These are just some ideas of how you can get involved. There's lots of different ways. Let's tell everyone what's going on. Let's tell people about the reality of what's happening out on our oceans. Share some posts. Sea Shepherd as a charity. We're not a government-funded organisation. We are a charity. So all the guys on the stand today, myself, we're all volunteers. We don't get paid to do any of this. All the campaigns I've done are self-funded. So all the money that's donated to Sea Shepherd, we don't have an office in the UK. We have like 2 paid members of staff. I think we're now up to about 300 volunteers, which is mind-blowing. I think we had about 40 when I joined, which is amazing. It shows how much Sea Shepherd as a movement is growing over a very short space of time. Share a few posts, help us tell people what's going on. If you're that way inclined, come and volunteer with us. Always up for some more volunteers. That's kind of it. Any questions? Sorry, I've just wrapped that up really quickly. Does anyone have any questions? It's quite a lot to take in, isn't it?
Why with the dolphins do they just kill them? What is their logic in that?
In Japan? Yeah. It depends who you ask. If you ask a Taji fisherman, what he will tell you is that they've been killing those dolphins for hundreds of years, and it's tradition, and they eat them, and that's what they do. The reality of it is, it's not tradition. They started in the 70s. They never used to catch dolphins. They never used to eat dolphins. It's like they never used to kill whales. They never used to eat whales. It's only happened in the last, I suppose, 65 years, 70 years. It's not tradition. It's all about money. The dolphins are the captive industry trade. If you can get one that's pretty and doesn't have many markings on it, and it's a bottlenose, for example, $500,000 US for one dolphin. And you can quite often get pods. I mean, I didn't see any bottlenose dolphins. I saw lots of Rizzos. I saw some Pacific white-sided dolphins, sorry. Some of these pods, they're taking sort of 20 dolphins out of. There was a pod of bottlenose, I think about a year ago-ish. And they must have taken 60 out of. That could be $30 million US. So it's not about tradition, it's all about money, in my opinion.
Why do they kill the ones they don't want?
I think it's to justify the whole thing. Because it's tradition, because they've always eaten dolphins. That's what they've always done. And
just to disguise what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely, to disguise what's going on. Justification, which doesn't really justify it in my eyes at all. Does anyone else have a question? Yeah.
The initial boat videos, was that legal or illegal?
Which one was that, sorry?
The very first.
With all the bycatch?
Yeah, and I can't remember.
Where they were sort of swinging their sharks over the side, that technically was illegal. It's illegal to catch sharks. Well, no, technically it's not illegal to catch sharks. I'm going to be careful how I say this. In some countries you can catch sharks. They have a quota of how many are allowed to be killed each year. But that's quite often why people end up finning, because then they don't take the whole body back and then it doesn't count towards their quota. People find backwards ways of getting around things, don't they? It always comes down to money. Always comes down to money. But those fishermen, I'm just trying to think exactly what video it was, because we've watched a mix of fishermen acting illegally and legally, to be honest. Sorry, that doesn't really answer the question, does it?
So sea shepherds are now not allowed in these different places, Japan or wherever else in the world.
Yeah.
Can't another charity just be set up by sea shepherds or by someone else who is inspired by sea shepherds just to do exactly the same? And
Yes.
keep the ball rolling like that, like a chain?
Yes.
So
go ahead. we can sort you out a stand for next year. Kent Vegan Festival. What are you going to call yourselves? Yeah, absolutely. The problem is a lot of Sea Shepherd volunteers. So for myself, for example, when you go into Japan, they take your fingerprints, they scan your eyes, and they take all your passport details. So I could go in not as Sea Shepherd, and they still wouldn't let me in. So they know who I am. And I think that would be the problem. You'd need to get a bunch of people that have never been to that place before. But you could do it. I'll give you some money towards it if you want. I can help. It's a great idea. It's the only way we're going to stay on the ground in places like Tagine. And it's the same in the Faroes. We're not technically allowed to be in the Faroes. Am I being getting told to shut up now? I'm getting a look. Any other questions? Yes?
I would have thought they would argue more, not that I agree with it because I'm a vegan anyway, but I would have thought they would argue more about fish stocks, that they kill dolphins, they kill whales to maintain fish stocks so that humans can have this perverse activity of eating fish. That's what I would have thought they would be arguing.
In Tagine?
Everywhere worldwide they would be saying we're killing these animals, just like in Scotland they're killing seals because they say it's fish stocks.
Yeah.
Fish stocks.
I think certainly.
So that perverse humans can eat fish.
Yeah.
For some bizarre reason and get mercury into their system and God knows what else. It's all bizarre.
I think you're completely right. Yeah, I completely agree. Did everyone hear that? Yeah. Any other questions? I'm sorry if I've made any of you depressed. But don't worry, like Sea Shepherd's out there and we're making a difference and we're stopping this from happening. That's the most important thing. Like this is a horrendous stuff that's happening around the world, but we're making a difference. So thank you very much for sitting quietly and listening to me rabble on for an hour. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to hang around outside for 5 minutes, or the guys in the Sea Shepherd stand will obviously be able to answer all your questions as well. Thank you very much.